Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, The Gentle Rebuild. I'm so excited for this podcast. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am for this because I'm going to talk about so many different things, and I love to think deeply and to talk about everything between the earth and the sky. And today's episode is actually going to be in two parts and I'm really excited for it. But before we start, I'm going to do a little introduction. So I'm gonna start on the name of the podcast, The Gentle Rebuild. So why did I choose that name, The Gentle Rebuild? I chose it because I have been dealing with chronic illness since I was 9 years old and I'm 22 now. And when I was 18, things took a dramatic turn and I got extremely sick for 2 years. And it has taken me 2 years to heal myself, but I had to do it very gently and it took a lot of time and I'm still healing, but I know so many things and I got the foundation and some extras, so now it's just about patience. So that is basically the name. I had to rebuild myself up from the very ground and it hasn't been easy. But it has taught me so many things and I have been able to find my own strength and realize what my body can actually do. And obviously when you're healing, it doesn't happen overnight, it takes time. And you have to allow yourself to give you that time to heal whatever it is. And that is probably one of the biggest acts of self-love, is to give you that time to heal. Because without your health, you're like a prisoner in your own body. So, in this episode, or part 1, I will be talking about vagus nerve dysfunction or vagus nerve damage and colitis ulcerosa, also known as ulcerative colitis, and it is a form of IBD. And I'm going to tell you my story, and it's very raw and personal, and I am basically sharing what it felt like living in a body that stopped working and how it was to fight for my health and what it is, basically, not to sound dramatic, but to overcome this huge obstacle that is so misunderstood, mainly because people can't see it, that you are dealing with this disease or dealing with whatever you might be dealing with. If people can't see it, they can't even try to put themselves in your shoes. I have at least gotten many comments from people that are doing their own stuff and living the life, and I've gotten questions why I'm not doing this or that, and I don't want to necessarily go into the depths of why I actually can't, so I often feel like an idiot or I make up a white lie just because I feel uncomfortable, and I know that if I tell them what is actually going on, they will also feel uncomfortable, and I don't like that situation. But to start with the whole story or whatever, I'm gonna start talking about colitis ulcerosa, and I'm going to say colitis ulcerosa, not ulcerative colitis, because that is what my doctor back in Iceland used to call it, colitis ulcerosa. So what is colitis ulcerosa? Colitis ulcerosa is a autoimmune disease, and what happens is that your immune system thinks that something is wrong, but nothing is wrong. So what happens? It attacks itself, and when it is with colitis ulcerosa, what happens is that we get inflammation and then ulcers in our colon. And colitis ulcerosa is just in our colon. But Crohn's is kind of like the big brother, and that is a way worse disease, and that can be from the mouth to the anus, but again, colitis ulcerosa is just in the colon. And when you get a flare-up, and when the inflammation and the ulcers happen, you lose a lot of blood, and there's just a lot of bleeding going on. So doctors have always told me, and I think just in general, every doctor has always said that colitis ulcerosa is genetic. But lately there have been research that is saying that colitis ulcerosa is also rising because of westernized lifestyle and diet. And we are seeing, when we look at the statistics, we see a huge rise in colitis ulcerosa in the westernized world. And when I'm talking about the westernized world, I'm talking about Europe, Scandinavia, and the United States. And when I'm talking about the statistics of colitis ulcerosa, I'm specifically talking about Scandinavia and the United States of America. And I think that we can't be naive here, because when we're looking at the statistics, there's such a huge rise going on, and you have to ask yourself why, because if it's just genetic, there shouldn't be such a huge rise. So obviously it's also the lifestyle and the diet, and our lifestyles and diet have become so westernized and so unhealthy in such a short amount of time. We are barely getting any movement. We go to work or we go to school, we sit all day, we go home, maybe you go to the gym, or maybe you walk into work or whatever, but we're not moving as much as we should, and our bodies are not made to sit for 8 hours a day. Then when we get home, we maybe don't have time to cook dinner, so we eat fast food or unhealthy food, and then we sit on the couch to wind down, watch TV, then we go to sleep. It doesn't sound like an active day for the body. It doesn't sound like this lifestyle is good for the body. So that is a really big point in why the statistics of the rise of the colitis ulcerosa is happening. And I think that the environmental factors play such a big role in this, and way bigger than we imagined. And I think this is so important to talk about, because especially with just the lifestyle and the diet, that's something that we can control, that's something that we can change. And it doesn't matter if you have this disease or you have another disease or you're healthy. It never hurts to live a healthier lifestyle and to eat more healthy, especially in the long run. Now let's talk about the climate, because there was a Norwegian study, it's 10 years old, that says that, I don't know really how to say this, but so when it starts to get warmer outside, just by 1 degree Celsius, colitis ulcerosa goes in remission by 9%. That is huge amount of remission for just 1 degree Celsius plus 1 degree Celsius. So if we're talking about the winter versus summer climate, and we're talking about the warmth outside, if the climate, like on average, if the heat difference is about 15 degrees, that means that colitis ulcerosa goes down in remission by 135% in the summertime. And there's so many people with colitis ulcerosa that talk about how they get worse and they get flare-ups in the wintertime, and I was one of them too. And that totally makes sense by just this one research. So I think that is something that is important to know, and that might also be an explanation why it's so common in Scandinavia. So basically what this research is saying is that we are way more likely to be in remission during the summer months and to have flare-ups in the winter months, but obviously it's also from person to person, as we're all different. So, when I was 9 years old, after being sick for a long time and having symptoms for a long time, I got diagnosed with colitis ulcerosa, and it was just in the lower part of the left side of my colon, but it was really severe when I got diagnosed. So they put me on Asacol, steroids, and Immorel. Asacol is an anti-inflammatory medicine, and Immorel suppresses the immune system. But that wasn't working in the long run. I was always having flare-ups, and it is not good for anyone, especially a child, to be so much on steroids. So that wasn't working, obviously, for the long run. So they put me on biologics. And I was 11 or 12 years old when I started the biologics. And when you Google what are biologics, they say a biopharmaceutical, also known as a biological medical product or biologic, is any pharmaceutical drug product manufactured in, extracted from, or semi-synthesized from biological sources. So, our bodies produce a protein called TNF-alpha, all of our bodies does. It's completely normal. But in people like me who have colitis ulcerosa, we produce too much of it, and that can cause inflammation. And that is one of many reasons why we get inflammation in our colon with this disease. So when we are put on biologics, one of the things that the biologics are doing is that they are minimizing and suppressing the TNF alpha in us. So they kind of work like an anti-TNF alpha medicine, or like a TNF alpha blocker in a way. Before I go on, I want to make it very, very clear that I am not a doctor and I am not in the medical field in any way or form. I've just done a lot of research and I've been able to help myself so incredibly much. And I have all of these informations and tips of how I have helped myself to basically heal a lot. And if you can use that information or just have it behind your ear, that's awesome. I just think it's a really important information to be heard. And so that's why I want to talk about this today. But also with later on, I just want to also say that what works for me might not work for you. But either way, you can never hurt yourself by living a healthy lifestyle and eating a healthy diet. It's a win-win situation. So when you Google what or how biologics can help with colitis ulcerosa, they say in a person with UC, the immune system is overactive and mistakenly attacks healthy cells in the body. Biologics are medications that attack specific cells and proteins in the immune system that cause inflammatory disease processes. For this reason, doctors also refer to treatment with biologics as targeted therapy. So, when I first got diagnosed with colitis ulcerosa, my doctor told me that diet didn't matter at all, and that I should just eat what I could eat. And honestly, I couldn't eat a lot. I could eat fish, Cheerios, white bread, potatoes, vegetables. I could not eat any fruit, and that was a bummer because I love fruit. But this is obviously not good for a kid, anyone, but especially kid, because we need all of the nutrition to be able to grow. So as I said, the reason why I started the biologics was because I was always having flare-ups. So when I started the biologics, that stopped and I was finally in a remission. I got like mini flare-ups here and there, but nothing serious. And because of that, I could finally eat whatever I wanted. So I could eat ice cream and dairy products. I could eat all kinds of meat, red meat, but I just ate hamburgers, like so the cow meat, or how you say it in English. And then I ate lamb, and I could eat all kinds of fruits and candy, and it was nice. I enjoyed it, not gonna lie. But I saw a video of a man that had a severe Crohn's, and I saw him on YouTube, and he came up with a theory because he was able to heal himself through lifestyle changes and diet. And I'm not saying that you can heal yourself or you should quit your medications or anything like that. No, what I'm saying is that you can help yourself. So please be careful. Thank you. But okay, let's keep on going. And he said a theory that I personally think makes a lot of sense, because we know this is also caused by a gene. And he said but what if we all had this gene, but some are just like more sensitive than others, like we are the ones that are more sensitive to it, I guess. And by being exposed to the westernized lifestyle and the westernized food, unhealthy habits, all of that, you kind of accidentally like activate that gene, or kind of get like similar to an allergic reaction from a gene, I guess, which makes you finally get the disease or a flare-up. And I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. And I think that we oftentimes like underestimate food, because food can literally be used as medicine. You can literally use it to heal yourself. And it's so important for even just a healthy, regular, normal person to eat healthy and have a healthy lifestyle. And the diet itself, especially for people with an IBD, so with colitis ulcerosa or with Crohn's, it is so important to have a healthy diet. What I find funny actually now when I think about it is that many times I was told that I shouldn't eat a lot of fiber, that my body wouldn't be able to handle a lot of fiber, so that is why I was just eating, yes, I was eating vegetables, but I couldn't eat fruits, and I could only eat white bread, which is the most unhealthiest bread that you can get. I at least thought it was a really good theory, but so let's fast forward until I'm around 16 to 17. I start to experience a little bit of a constipation, which looked like I couldn't go to the bathroom for maybe 2 or 3 days, and then there came this one day that I was able to go to the bathroom. And I told my doctor about it, and when I got 18, and yeah, this starts when I'm 16, 17, and I told my doctor about it when I turned 18, because that's when I had to change doctors, because I became an adult, a legal adult. But, and he was like, okay, well, I want to take you into a little colonoscopy and just see what's going on, and he didn't see anything. Everything looked fine. So he just made me take magnesium, and so I was taking magnesia calm in the evening, which is a powder that you put in water so it becomes a tea. And then I was taking 500 milligrams magnesia DAC throughout the day, so 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, and that is way too much magnesium. Well, way too much. But that helped in the beginning, just like the biologics helped me in the beginning. But then I become 18 years old. That's when all of the fun starts. So what happens is my constipation becomes way worse. So I've had this kind of like a constipation cycle, but I just thought it was like how my digestive system was working at the time. Didn't really think a lot of it. But this time it got really bad, and I was just not able to go to the bathroom at all, which is obviously not good. And I started noticing this weird cycle about my biologics. So at this time I'm 18 years old, so I had been on the biologics for 6-7 years, something like that. And they helped me a lot. But this time they were starting to make me sick, and it looked something like that every time I had an infusion of the biologics, because you get them by going to the hospital and get them infused in you. It takes around 2 hours. Every time I would come home, I would feel like my stomach was full of water, and I looked so bloated. And because I felt like my stomach was full of water, I would go into the bed and I would just sit there straight until it was time to go to sleep. And I couldn't move just the tiniest bit, because if I moved, I felt like I was going to throw up. It never happened, but that was the feeling. And I couldn't eat, and I couldn't drink anything. And I remember having this like kind of like a chemical salty taste in the back of my mouth, which is just related to this actually now when I think about it. So I started noticing the cycle, because this was at its worst every time I had just gotten my biological infusion, and I got extremely constipated and really sick like a week, 2, 3 weeks afterwards. And then by the time I was getting healthier again and being able to go to the bathroom, it was time for my next infusion. And so it became this cycle. So I was getting my infusions every 6 weeks, and because this was such an obvious cycle, so it was obviously my biologics. And I tried to contact my doctor and tell him about this, what is going on, and like what can I do and whatever. And it was really hard to get through with him, but then he finally answers, and he just says, no, it's not the biologics. The biologics don't work this way. Like, basically just, laughing and whatever. And then he said, you know what? Because you can't go to the bathroom, let's take an x-ray of you and see, like, how much stool you have in your colon. So I do that. I get my x-ray, and he says, he's going to call me. And he calls me when it's ready, maybe 4 days later. And he says, yeah, well, your colon is full of stool, and you also have fecal impaction. And fecal impaction is when there's an old stool in you that hasn't been able to clear out. So it's just sitting there. And that can be dangerous if it's not treated. And he was telling me this while he was laughing. He genuinely thought it was funny. He laughed throughout the whole entire phone call while I was crying because I was scared. And he told me that I had to clear out. So I did that. I took the laxative medicine and did what he said. And he said he was going to follow up, also just to make sure that the fecal impaction had been removed. Well, big surprise, he never followed up. So at that point, in that phone call that I was telling him about, what was happening, and he told me to go get an x-ray, he totally dismissed everything that I was going through and my feelings and how scared I was, and he was just kind of defending the biologics in a really weird way. So at this point, I'm basically sick of I am physically sick from the biologics, and I'm sick of having to count on the biologics just to be healthy. So I do a deep dive on the internet and I try to get as many testimonies from people that had been able to at least help themselves a little bit in a way. And there are so many, and I think they're just becoming more on the internet actually, of people saying and explaining how they were able to help themselves when they are dealing with colitis ulcerosa and help themselves in a really big way by going into remission. So I stumbled across this thing that many people were talking about, eating anti-inflammatory diet. And that obviously makes sense, as colitis ulcerosa is an inflammatory disease in the colon. So I start doing this and I make a really, really big and long list of what food is anti-inflammatory and what food causes inflammation. And I slowly start to introduce the anti-inflammatory foods into my diet and switch it out by the inflammatory foods that I was eating. But because my doctor was just totally dismissing me on my worries about the biologics, so I wanted to get a second opinion. So I got an appointment with a specialist in digestion and digestive diseases. And I was there, and I was talking about the biologics and telling him my symptoms and everything, and he was just like, no, it's not the biologics, and he was barely listening. He wasn't even looking at me. He was just looking at the computer. It was a really weird thing. And and he was, again, totally dismissing what I was saying and just talking about how he wanted to put me in another colonoscopy and that fun stuff. And I just break down there because this is so hard. And while I'm crying, I say, I'm not even eating sugar. Like, very intensively. And that's when he looks at me, like, and gives me his full attention and says, yeah, okay, so you're not eating sugar. Because at that time, I was trying to, I just wanted off of the biologics. And his response was like, yeah, okay, so you're not eating sugar. I can't advise you to quit the biologics. I will advise you from it. But because you're not eating sugar, if you want to, you can. And I was 20 at the time, so I could make my own decisions, which I actually thought was a little bit terrifying, because this was one of the biggest decisions that I ever made in my life, because this could have gone totally downhill. I didn't know anything like how this will turn out, but thank God it turned out really well. I've just been becoming healthier every day. But I thought this was the strangest response ever, because he had just been telling me that I could not quit the biologics and that the biologics were not causing all of this sickness that I was having. And just because he heard that I was not eating sugar anymore, he tells me that if I want to, I can quit the biologics, but if I would, then he would want me to take the highest dose of Asacol. And he wanted to take blood tests to see how everything was going, and he did that. He actually followed up. He was a good doctor when it came to following up, and but in the beginning, not listening to me and dismissing my concerns and just making me feel like an idiot. I mean, this really makes you question everything. Because this was so crystal clear that he was trying to defend the biologics and make me stay on it, like he was trying to defend the big pharma. And it just, because I had heard talks about it, like how the big pharma, like it's a big business, but it's just like you don't really realize it until all of a sudden there's a bigger light bulb, especially when you're in that kind of situation. It's really weird, and it also makes me question, why aren't doctors, especially with patients with colitis ulcerosa, why aren't doctors talking about that diet actually does matter? And why aren't they putting us up with dietitians to help us, go into an anti-inflammatory diet? Or like, I have so many questions, and I don't, like, I've honestly lost trust in doctors because of this whole situation. And that is not a good thing. But anyway, so after this whole thing, my main doctor, my main specialist in digestive tract diseases, he calls me and says, yeah, like if you want to quit the biologics, there is a way, there is a research that says that younger women specifically have a better chance of going into full remission with colitis ulcerosa, and quitting the biologics when they're, as a young woman. And I'm like, why haven't you told me this? Why have we never gotten any information about this? Like, I've honestly learned so much more about colitis ulcerosa and how the medicines have affected me just by doing my own research on the internet. And I know you should not trust the internet always, but I mean, it's like the gatekeeping information from their own patients. Like, why? And anyways, but he wanted me to quit it slowly so my body wouldn't form any resistance towards the biologics if I will need them later on. And he also told me that by doing it that way, that as he suggested, I will be less likely to go into a flare-up while quitting the biologics. But I really, really, really did not want to get the biologics again, because I was getting so sick from them, and I felt disgusting that I never showed up to the hospital again. I never got the biologics again. But I also think that it's so weird, even though I kind of know like the reason behind it now, today. But I still think it's so weird how doctors are really trying to push everyone to be on all sorts of medications, when you can actually help yourself so much, and why they aren't rather trying to, like, obviously people need medication. I needed the biologics at first, but why aren't they also making me do lifestyle changes and dietary changes besides, like, while I'm taking the biologics? Like, it shouldn't, like, I shouldn't have to be on biologics forever just to survive. And I think that's the weirdest thing. They act like medicine is like the fairy tale product that like will keep you healthy in forever, and it's not that way. And it's so, like, it's not good, especially when it comes to harsh medicines like the biologics. They are really, really harsh on your body, and it's nothing to take lightly about. Like, after you get the infusion, you feel extremely tired because they've just been suppressing your immune system to like 0. And like, it's, especially if you're not used to taking the biologics, you basically shouldn't be driving home from the hospital. Like, you need someone to drive you home because you can't fall asleep while driving. And you feel so tired afterwards, and you could sleep the whole day after the infusion, and you feel weak. And it's just like, that is nothing to take lightly, and that is nothing that they should be, that people should, I don't know, be like really happy and like, oh yeah, I'll just take the biologics. I mean, why not? Like, no, you really need to do your own research. And also because I wasn't told about the side effects or the risks that came with the biologics. I was only told about, and remember, I was 11 or 12 years old when I started the biologics, but me and my mom were only told about the only risk was basically that my chances of getting cancer would go higher, but they were as high as if I were eating red meat. And I didn't eat red meat at that age because I couldn't handle it then, so it kind of zeroed out, but nothing else. They never told us about anything else. And there are so many other side effects and risks, and I'm dealing with it now. So I have to say, I get kind of angry thinking about the whole system and the medications and how doctors just put you on this medication instead of like going to the root. They're just putting a band-aid over it, and it's not good at all. And I know there are so many people dealing with this, but there's so many, like, you can't find this information, like no one is speaking about it. So I'm hoping that by just speaking about it, hopefully other people can talk about it, and if other people relate or are going through the same thing, I hope that you can talk about it or try to get this resolved, because this is horrible. This is no life being in that kind of situation. You know, feeling like you're just sick and like you're just in prison in your own body, like you can't trust your own body, and that sucks. I've been there, and it absolutely sucks. And it's about regaining your own freedom. It's literally everything that it's about. By getting your health back, you are regaining your own freedom, because then you don't have to depend on those, at least those harsh medicines. I still take Asacol today, but I don't have to depend on going to the hospital every 6 weeks to get a crazy harsh medicine into my body. So, sure enough, when I quit the biologics, my symptoms go away, and my constipation got way better. I mean, it wasn't like this crazy constipation, but I was still dealing with like a slow colon, and that is also like a constipation kind of thing, but it was nothing to that degree that it had become. Then when I'm 20 years old, these were these 2 years just of, trying to figure out what was wrong with me and quitting the biologics. And when I'm 20 years old, I moved to Denmark, and I get this amazing doctor and amazing team. Really, wow, I was in shock actually. And they wanted to take me in a colonoscopy because I was having pain in my colon, and I was afraid that I hadn't been able to remove the fecal impaction. So I got into colonoscopy, and they said that everything looked fine. It was super good. The only thing that was that they could see that my colon was, slow. And the thing is, when you have ever had any ulcers in your colon, the tissue can be damaged in the place where the ulcers were, and that can cause a slower colon. So then I go and talk to the doctor, like maybe 2 weeks after the colonoscopy or something, and he said that, everything looked good, everything was great, and he said that I was in perfect remission. And they had also taken blood work, and in the blood work you can see the inflammation in your body, and usually if you're having a flare-up, they can see it on the blood test, and you have like crazy high inflammation score. I'm not sure what it is called in English, so let's just keep this very simple. But and the average person has some kind of inflammation in the blood work. I was below the average healthy person in the blood work. I basically, like, the inflammation in my blood that the blood test was showing was non-existent, meaning that I was in perfect remission, and the colonoscopy also showed that I was in perfect remission by cutting out sugar and being on an anti-inflammatory diet. Just think about that. I quit the biologics from being always in flare-ups, having been on steroids, and I changed my diet into an anti-inflammatory diet, and I'm below average from a healthy person in inflammation, and I'm in perfect remission. If that doesn't tell you something, then I don't know what will. But he looks at me and he's like, what are you doing? And I told him, I changed my lifestyle, and I started eating anti-inflammatory diet after the biologics started making me sick. He didn't say anything, but he had the biggest smile and nodded his head yes the whole time. And then he said, keep doing what you're doing. And this makes me like, because he didn't even comment on the biologics, but he didn't dismiss them, but he didn't comment anything. And it just makes me think even more that doctors know way more than they can say. And I think this was also kind of a proof of that. So now I'm going to talk about the biologics and the vagus nerve. And this is also why I'm doing a two-part, because in the next episode I will be talking about what helped me and what is helping me and how I became this healthy. So this is just kind of like the pre-story to get to that place, I guess. And I think it's a really important part. So as I already said, I was 11 or 12 years old when I started the biologics, and they only told us about the cancer risk, and I wish that people will do more of their own research about medication, whatever medication you're starting on, especially if it's something as harsh as biologics. And I still think it's really weird that not even my mom, who, she's my mother, she's my caretaker, wasn't told about any other risks or side effects from biologics, because surely there are way more than just a higher risk of getting cancer. And there is actually a connection between vagus nerve damage and biologics can cause vagus nerve damage in many ways, unfortunately, and that is something that I am dealing with today. It's been very fun, to say the least. But again, my symptoms started getting better after I quit the biologics, so the whole constipation thing that I was dealing with was from the vagus nerve damage that was most likely connected to the biologics, because when I puzzle this all together, that is the only explanation that I have. And I want you to know also, like, if you're going through this or any other thing that takes time to heal from, like, you need to be patient. And I know that is so hard and difficult because you just want to become healthy again, and I know that so well, trust me. But I think that is probably one of the biggest tests in all of this. It's to be patient and to allow your body to really heal. And obviously it takes time, and you need to kind of treat yourself like a baby. Honestly, like, you need to be kind to yourself and stop putting any pressure on your healing journey, because this is your own healing journey, and it can be, it takes a lot of time, especially when we're talking about nerves. Nerves heal very slowly, unfortunately. I got significantly better as soon as I moved to Denmark. I don't really know why. Maybe it's because I moved in the summer and it was warmer here than in Iceland. It's just a thought, I don't know, but I got really better, so I've been on like a really great stable journey now for 2 years in healing my vagus nerve. But you need to, as I said, you need to treat yourself like a baby. You need to take really good care of yourself and be gentle. And like, you wouldn't tell a baby or be annoyed to a baby just because it hasn't start walking when it's 2 months old, or it hasn't started talking yet when it's 2 months old. Like, no, it takes time. All good things take time, and it's just so important to like remind yourself of that it takes time, but it will happen. You will become healthy again, and you will be able to heal. And also appreciate that you are in a situation where, like, it's hard because it might be really dark right now, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and just, you are in a situation now where you can actually heal. And that is also, like, I know it's hard right now, but try to stay positive. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So let's keep on going. So the vagus nerve is the biggest nerve in our body, and it regulates many things and it has so many functions. But what it does regulate, just to name a few, is your emotions, your heart rate, and your digestion. And I want to go into the signs of vagus nerve damage, and I have 12 signs here. So the 12 signs are anxiety and being easily startled. I had that and still have. having dizziness and being lightheaded. I still have that. Having poor sleep and sleep disorders. I don't sleep well often. I've just recently started to sleep well throughout the night after these 4 long years. Heart rate and blood pressure changes. Difficulty swallowing. This is such a huge thing for me, and I will go into that a little bit later. Having abdominal pain and bloating. That's also a check for me. Loss of gag reflex. Low heart rate variability. Nausea and vomiting. Constipation and diarrhea. I mean, I've already talked about the constipation. Poor appetite regulation. Feeling full quickly. Yes, but that was connected to the constipation. And hoarseness, wheezing, and loss of voice. Let's talk about the swallowing thing. So, just very recently I've been starting to be able to eat food without the difficulty of swallowing being present, but it gets worse if I'm anxious. So it's both because of the vagus nerve and because of the anxiety. There was a time in those 4 years, from 18 to 20 years old, where I couldn't even swallow my water. And when I was extremely anxious and having an anxiety attacks, I couldn't even swallow my saliva. And that's just like, what the heck? What's going on? This is not supposed to be this way. And, so like, weird thing. So that is basically like the 2 last points in this episode. It's the connection of the vagus nerve for me with the swallowing difficulties and anxiety, and also the constipation, because the vagus nerve regulates the digestive system, and that is the main, I guess, nerve for the for the brain gut axis. And like, your brain is so important for your digestive health to send the right signals, like, okay, it's time to go to the bathroom, or like, you're hungry, let's eat, So yeah, so that is like the reason why my colon is still slow and why I'm still dealing with constipation, even though it's better in the summertime, and it has just been getting better and better, like, every day. That is because of the vagus nerve damage. And I will go deeper into, in the next episode, as I said, what helps to heal the vagus nerve damage and also colitis ulcerosa. But yeah, now let's talk about the swallowing difficulties and anxiety. Very fun. Ooh. So the vagus nerve affects the swallowing difficulties, and for me, I started getting really anxious all of a sudden, and I do have, I've been through some trauma, a lot of trauma, and I know that my anxiety can come from those traumas, but not to this degree, because this was ridiculous. Like, like, I don't know what happened, but I started getting these anxiety attacks maybe once a week, and then they started happening every day. And when I'm anxious, I can't eat. I need to be very calm and in a very calm state to be able to eat. So naturally, I wasn't able to eat as much when I was this anxious, and this was a whole nother level. And when you're this anxious, you burn even more calories, so you need to eat more, so it was like not working in my favor. And on top of that, when I get anxious, my throat gets really tight, which makes it even harder to swallow. So it was like everything was working against me, and this is all happening while I'm dealing with the medical issues, and it was really, really tough. Now, with my anxiety, it also got way better as soon as I moved to Denmark. It's like, I don't know what happened. It's just everything changed for the better when I came to Denmark. I'm so happy about it. Wow. But yeah. So I'm dealing with this all alone, and I'm having really bad anxiety. I'm getting really, really bad depression, and my PTSD is kicking in, and it's just like everything, is just working against me, as I said. And I was like, you know what? I need to go to the doctor, because at that point I had lost 20 kilos. I was 67 kilos and I lost 20 kilos and became 47 kilos because of the difficulty swallowing. So I couldn't swallow my food, and because of my anxiety. That was the reason why I lost so much weight. So I went to the doctor and I was like, I'm not getting my period anymore. And he looks at me, he's like, how much do you weigh? And I'm like, last time I checked, 47 kilos. And he just Googled, I could have done it. And he was like, yeah, well, by this BMI chart, you're underweight. So that's probably, the reason. And I go, oh, okay, thank you, bye-bye. So, I got the answer, but, what can I do? Nothing, because I couldn't eat. And as a woman, especially as a young woman, it's really weird to miss your periods. And getting your periods tell you as a woman that you are relatively healthy. You have enough energy, you have enough fat storage to be able to carry a child and to have ovulation. So that is something that is really serious if it happens that you miss your periods. And I didn't get my period for over 1.5 years. And I didn't get them again until I became, I think, 53 kilos, which is the lowest that I can be for my height. Now, as I already mentioned, my anxiety was extremely bad, and I really needed a therapist, because this was just too much, with the anxiety and the depression, and I'm getting flashbacks, and I was like, I couldn't do this anymore. So I tried to contact some therapists, and it was all like minimum 3 months waiting time, plus it costed a lot of money. So I contacted my family doctor, and I told him, like, I really, really need a therapist. And he didn't even like talk about therapists. He was just like, yeah, well, here's some anxiety pills, I'm like, no, I need a therapist. I never asked for the pills. He never talked about the therapist. He just talked about the pills, that will be my solution to the anxiety. So he just wanted to put a band-aid over it and not get to the root of the problem. And I never took the pills. I never took them out of the pharmacy. So, but it was just like, why? I just wanted to see if there was any therapist that I could get. So I thought that was really weird, and so I was not able to get the help that I wanted. I was not able to get at that time, because this is still in Iceland, from when I'm 18 to 20 years old, where I'm really physically sick, and because I'm so physically sick, I'm so anxious and depressed, and I'm not getting any help. But one thing that I was actually doing right was eating an anti-inflammatory diet, because that helped me so incredibly much, and I was already making progress in Iceland shortly before I moved to Denmark. And it just, it's really cliche, but food is your medicine. Literally, like, it can change your life, and it just makes me come to the conclusion that we all need nature. Society has evolved in that way to take us from nature. And you can see how everyone is getting the chronic diseases, and everyone just feel bad, everyone is so anxious and stressed and depressed. It's because big reason is because we live in this fast-paced society away from nature, and we have very little green space or time to go into nature. We need nature. We need the food from nature, not the processed crackers or candy that you buy in the store. We need the food that come from nature, because it can heal us in so many ways. And just nature itself, being in nature, can help you so much, just calming down and grounding yourself. So I guess that is like the conclusion of this episode. And then in the next one, I will go in details what again helped me go into such a deep remission with colitis ulcerosa and the anti-inflammatory diet, and also what has been helping me healing my vagus nerve, even though it's still damaged and I'm still dealing with the consequences of the biologics. And I'm still sick in a like it affects my daily life, but I'm on a good road, and I know that I will, get to the very, very, very healthy point, where I will be able to be completely healed in a short amount of time. So I just really wanted to share this information with y'all, and I'm really, really excited for the next episode to be able to share all of those details with you. And I really hope that you can take something from this and apply it to your life. And yeah, I really hope that you will listen to it. And I'm really thankful that you have listened so far, because I know this was a really long first episode. But if you enjoy this kind of podcasts, then definitely keep on checking my podcast out. Thank you so much and have an amazing day.